Have you ever sat in your car after work, looked at your bank balance, and felt your chest tighten? Picture a man named James sitting in his silent vehicle in a suburban driveway at 7:42 p.m. The soft ambient light of the dashboard glows with a clinical precision. Outside, the world is blurred by a steady downpour, but inside, the air is still. Observe the way he holds his phone, the screen displaying a banking app. He has just seen the arrival of a bonus, a figure that most would consider a life-changing windfall. Yet, as he looks at his recurring obligations, his face doesn't show relief. It shows a quiet, calculated exhaustion. Envision the sensory details of this moment: the smell of expensive leather, the faint hum of the climate control, and the cold realization that even this win has already been spent. He followed every directive the system gave him. He secured the advanced degree from a top-tier university. He climbed the corporate ladder with relentless discipline. He purchased the home in the right neighborhood to ensure his children had access to the right opportunities. But as he sits there, James feels like a high-performance athlete who is being forced to sprint uphill for a finish line that keeps receding into the mist. Consider the weight of the silence in that car. He isn't suffering from bad habits. He doesn't have a gambling problem or a fleet of sports cars. He is experiencing the modern American paradox: being wealthy on paper but structurally fragile in practice. He realizes that his $220,000 household income has merely bought him entry into a high-maintenance machine that requires 60 hours of his week just to keep the gears from grinding to a halt. Think back to the classic fantasy of making it, the dream of a life where money buys peace. For James, money has bought a treadmill that is slowly increasing its speed. Look at the way he finally turns off the car, the silence suddenly feeling heavier. He is one corporate restructuring or one unforeseen health event away from the entire structure collapsing. This is the cost of living trap. It is not a failure of character, it is a masterpiece of systemic design. In the next 12 minutes, we are going to dismantle the mechanics of this cage using the most recent data from 2024 and 2025, providing a system-level analysis to explain why doing everything right has left so many professionals feeling thinned out, burned out, and locked in. I've spent the last decade analyzing the structural forces that dictate our financial and psychological well-being, looking past the hustle culture noise to the cold reality of the numbers. What I've found is that the modern professional is navigating a landscape that has changed fundamentally in the last 5 years. I want to offer a calm, evidence-based breakdown of these systems, because when you understand the architecture of the trap, you stop blaming yourself for feeling exhausted. If you value this kind of deep system analysis over motivational hype, consider subscribing to help us continue these investigations. It helps the algorithm identify that there is a demand for clarity over noise. If this perspective on the high earner trap mirrors your own observations, hitting the like button ensures this data reaches others who are currently questioning their own reality. Before we proceed, a vital note: these are observations of economic systems and sociological trends, not personalized financial, legal, or medical advice. Everyone's situation is unique. I am not a financial advisor. Please consult with a professional for your specific circumstances. The trap begins with a structural shift I call the floor of adequacy. For the previous generation, the floor, the cost of a stable middle-class existence, was relatively low and stable, but for today's professional, the floor has been engineered into a high-rise. According to the Federal Reserve's 2025 report on the economic well-being of U.S. households, while 73% of adults say they are doing okay financially, the sense of fragility has shifted. Among those earning over $100,000, nearly 30% report that a single unexpected $1,000 expense would force them to carry a credit card balance or sell something. This is the high earner fragility. Let's introduce a second composite avatar, Robert. Robert is 41, a senior manager in a logistics firm. He lives in a suburb of Charlotte. He makes $135,000 a year. Notice the location tax Robert pays. To maintain his career trajectory, Robert must live in a high-growth corridor. This entry fee to the professional economy accounts for 35% of his take-home pay. Because he and his partner both work high-intensity roles to sustain this, they have a time deficit. Robert doesn't spend money on convenience. He buys back the time required to earn his salary. He pays for professional landscaping because his weekends are spent catching up on emails. He pays for premium childcare because he cannot risk a sick day. Bureau of Labor Statistics data from the 2024 Consumer Expenditure Survey shows that non-discretionary spending, the costs you cannot avoid if you want to stay in the game, has grown at 1.8 times the rate of professional wage growth over the last 4 years. Robert isn't living large. He is funding a high-performance infrastructure that is a mandatory prerequisite for his paycheck. He is in a closed-loop system where the floor of adequacy is so high that he has no walkaway power. He is an indentured servant to his own standard of living, trapped by the very success he was told would set him free. To understand the depth of this trap, we must look at the divergence between consumer inflation and class preservation inflation. While the general CPI might fluctuate, the costs that anchor a professional family, housing in secure zip codes, healthcare premiums, and education have decoupled from the reality of the average American experience. Let's look at the safety tax. In the modern US economy, safety has been commodified. For a professional parent, the fear of their child falling behind is a primary psychological driver. Recent data analyzed by Zillow and Redfin in 2025 shows that homes in school districts rated in the top 10% carry a safety premium of 30% to 50% over comparable homes just 10 miles away. This isn't just a house, it's a hedge against the erosion of the middle class. This creates the Red Queen effect. You must run as fast as you can just to stay in the same place. Consider the cost of the rules. James, from our opening, followed the rules. He took the safe path, but according to the Education Data Initiative's 2025 update, the gross cost of private higher education has increased by approximately 180% since 2000. Even when adjusting for typical aid, James is still paying for the entry fee of his own career while simultaneously trying to fund the entry fee for his children. This leads to what sociologists call lifestyle lock-in. The trap is designed to maximize your burn rate. If your fixed structural costs, the mortgage, the insurance, the tuition, the professional grade wardrobe equal 85% of your income, you are effectively paralyzed. According to the 2023 survey of consumer finances released in late 2024 and updated with 2025 projections, the median net worth of the American upper middle class is increasingly tied up in illiquid assets, primarily home equity and retirement accounts. You can have $1 million net worth and still feel poor on a Tuesday morning because you cannot eat your home equity. This is the illiquidity trap. The system encourages you to lock your wealth into vehicles that you cannot touch until you are 65, while simultaneously raising your daily burn rate. This ensures that you remain a high-functioning unit of production. You cannot take a 6-month discovery break. You cannot pivot to a lower-paying, higher-meaning career. You are a passenger in a vehicle where the cruise control is set to extreme productivity and the brakes have been removed. There is a specific silent burnout that occurs when you are winning by every societal metric, but losing your sense of self. It is a cognitive dissonance that creates a permanent state of low-level anxiety. This is what I call the validation void, because you earn a high salary, the people around you, and even your own family feel you have no right to complain. You are told to be grateful. But gratitude doesn't pay for the 3 a.m. heart palpitations when you realize you are 45 years old and don't know who you are outside of your job title. You have become a human capital asset that is being depreciated by the system. Vanguard's 2025 How America Saves report indicates that while 401k participation and savings rates remain high, financial readiness scores, a measure of confidence in the future, have declined significantly among professionals. Envision the 3 a.m. ceiling staring session. James is lying there calculating. He isn't calculating his wealth. He is calculating his survival runway. He realizes that his $220,000 income is essentially a pass-through account. The money enters his bank, and within 72 hours, 90% of it has flowed back out to the bank, the insurance company, the school, and the service providers. He is a middleman in his own life. This leads to the maintenance cost of the mind. When you are this exhausted, you don't have the mental energy to be creative or revolutionary. You buy micro escapes. You spend $200 on a dinner because you need a win. You spend $5,000 on a vacation that you spend half of the time dreading the return from. These are not luxuries, they're the emergency repairs required to keep a burnt-out mind from total collapse. Notice the way your own body feels as we discuss this. That tightness in the chest, that sense of someone is finally describing the water I'm swimming in, that is the first step towards sovereignty. The trap relies on you believing this is your fault, that you're bad with money or not working hard enough. But the data shows that you are actually a top-tier performer operating in a system that is designed to harvest your vitality and leave you with just enough to return to work on Monday. We do not disarm a systemic trap with life hack. We disarm it with a cold-eyed systemic audit. We stop viewing our lives as a series of wants and start viewing them as inputs and outputs. Consider these 3 pressure release valves that the most resilient professionals are beginning to use to reclaim their sovereignty. First, the floor of adequacy recalibration. Look at your fixed costs, the house, the cars, the tiers of schooling. Instead of asking, can I afford this monthly payment? Ask, what is the freedom cost of this item? If a $4,000 mortgage requires you to stay in a job that makes you miserable, that house isn't an asset, it's an anchor. The Federal Reserve's 2025 research on perceived financial control shows that reducing fixed costs by just 15% provides a greater boost to mental health than a 30% increase in gross salary. Second, the real hourly wage analysis. Take your total net income. Now, subtract the trap maintenance costs, the stress tax, the convenience meals, the therapy, the expensive escapes, the location premium, the extra you pay just to be near the office, the time outsourcing, paying others to do what you could do if you weren't exhausted. Now divide that by the actual hours you spend working, commuting, and recovering from work. Many six-figure professionals find that their real hourly wage is shockingly low, often less than that of a trade professional with zero lifestyle lock-in. Third, decoupling identity from consumption. The system wins when your identity is tied to the safety tax neighborhoods. One composite avatar, a father named Thomas, moved his family from a Tier 1 urban hub to a Tier 2 city with a 25% lower cost of living. By moving into a good enough public school district instead of a top 1% district, he saved $30,000 a year in post-tax income. That $30,000 wasn't just money, it was walk-away power. He used it to negotiate a 4-day work week. He defunded the trap. These are structural moves. They require the courage to look at the rules and realize they are optional. Consult with a professional to see how you can lower your burn rate to increase your sovereignty. Imagine that same man, James, sitting in his car 6 months from now. The rain has stopped and the air is clear. He hasn't quit his career, but he has redesigned his machine. He and his partner have had the hard truth conversation. They've realized that a perfect life on paper is worthless if they are too exhausted to enjoy the actual people in that life. They've stopped paying the status tax. They've realized that their children don't need a top 1% zip code as much as they need a father who isn't a ghost in his own home. The cost of living trap is only inescapable as long as it remains invisible. Once you see the safety tax, the validation void, and the human capital depreciation, the trap loses its hypnotic power. You stop asking, how do I earn more? And you start asking, how do I need less so I can be more? This isn't about being a minimalist or living in a yurt. This is about systemic sovereignty. It is about looking at the high status, high stress cage you've been sold and realizing that you hold the key. The key isn't more money. The key is a lower burn rate and a higher walkaway power. You followed the rules. You did everything right. Now it is time to build a life that is actually yours rather than a life that belongs to the bank, the corporation, and the safety tax. If this analytical deep dive has given you a moment of clarity, I invite you to join this community. We are dedicated to providing the system-level tools needed to navigate an economy that is designed to keep you stretched. Subscribe to help us keep this clarity flowing. And if you have a colleague, someone currently redlining their engine just to stay in the driveway, share this with them. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give a fellow professional is the evidence-based permission to stop running on the treadmill. Look at the path ahead. The system is the problem, but clarity is the solution. And now that you have the clarity, you can finally take the wheel. Disclaimer, this video is for educational and informational purposes only. The scenarios described are composite avatars and do not represent specific individuals. Economic data is sourced from reports by the Federal Reserve 2025, Bureau of Labor Statistics 2024, Vanguard 2025, and other cited sources. This content does not constitute financial, legal, or professional advice. Always consult with a qualified professional for your unique circumstances.